When facing mind-body conditions, it's important to remember that there are different corrective strategies, so different recovery tools to use at different stages of your recovery journey. And a lot of what I've shared here on this channel are really great strategies for when your symptoms are mild or moderate. But what do you do when your symptoms are severe? You need to take a completely different approach in those times. And people often refer to these times as crashes or relapses or stages of their condition when they are severe or very severe. And one person that I interviewed talked about these times. She said it felt like an elephant was sitting on her. So she'd just say, "Oh, the elephant sat on me again," because it can completely immobilize you. It's like you're frozen in place. So, in many conditions like ME/CFS and long COVID, in the cases where nervous system dysregulation is at the core of what's causing your symptoms, when you get into these severe states, what has likely happened is that your nervous system has gone into a freeze state. When faced with danger or even a perceived threat, humans and all other animals instinctively respond with one of three states. The first is fight, so defend yourself against the threat. The second is flight, so you're going to run, you're going to try and escape the threat. And then the third is freeze, and this is where it immobilizes you and you just become unresponsive. And depending on the severity of the perceived threat, your brain decides how to respond to this. And it's interesting to note that emotional threats and physical threats trigger the exact same neural pathways, the exact same responses in the brain. Those two types of danger enact the same systems in your body, and they have the exact same arsenal of symptoms at their disposal that they can create to alert you to what's going on. And if it's a milder threat, it might be a milder symptom like some sadness or some anxiety or some, pain in the body. And if the threat is more severe, it might be a stronger symptom. And what we do see happening in many cases of ME/CFS and long COVID is this downward spiral into a place of being bedbound because the symptoms start. People understandably react with fear. That fear reinforces to your brain and nervous system that, yes, something is wrong. The symptoms keep going, and they can get worse and worse and worse until you're in this freeze state and you can barely move at all. So the freeze response is a survival mechanism where it essentially shuts you down to avoid further danger. And it's not letting you go anywhere until it assesses that things are okay. The science behind this is progressing fast, and we now understand that there are three distinct phases that happen in a freeze state. And more importantly, we know how to break free from each one. So this information is coming from the cutting edge research of Alan Gordon. He is the executive director of the Pain Psychology Center here in California, and it's his science-driven and data-driven approach that I'll be sharing with you here. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear roadmap to navigate these phases of a freeze state and move towards eventually stopping this from happening altogether. And hey, everyone, welcome back. And if you're new here, I'm Raelan Agle, and I spent a decade living with ME/CFS before finally finding my path to full recovery. And since then, I've conducted over 200 recovery interviews and crafted my own recovery program to help others just like you. Between all the recovery interviews, all the experts and doctors I've interviewed, all of my own research that I've done, the hundreds, probably thousands of you out there I've talked to through emails and DMs, all of this put together means that I am really up to speed with what's going on. So I am uniquely positioned to bring you all killer, no filler version of what you need to know for recovery. And I put out 99% of my information for free on the internet in various formats. So if you dig, you will find it. But if you're looking for a more structured approach, you might want to check out my online course, Brain Retraining 101 for ME/CFS and long COVID recovery. It's linked in the video description if you want to take a look and learn more about it. All right, so let's dive in. Now, I remember these times when the elephant would sit on me well. This is intense suffering when your symptoms are so bad that you can barely move, you can barely open your eyes, just everything feels like too much. And I wouldn't wish this on anyone. And I remember when they would come on and it'd be terrifying. Like, why do I feel this bad? What is happening? How do I fix this? How do I change it? So if this is something that you also face, I really feel for you because I know how challenging this can be. And in these moments, it can feel like you're taking leaps backwards. Like, what is happening? I thought I was doing really well. Now I'm laid out. Clearly, I'm not getting anywhere. We give them scary terms like severe and crash and relapse. But it's actually, although the symptoms feel severe, you're not crashing, you're not relapsing, your body is okay, you're not going backwards. And once you understand what's happening in those moments, you can navigate through them much more quickly and get on with your journey. So first, let's look at why there are different recovery strategies that you need to use depending on the severity of your symptoms. When your symptoms are mild or moderate, conventional brain retraining strategies like somatic tracking, where you just notice the symptoms, but you have this neutrality and you don't worry about them and you're not scared, or all of these other sorts of brain training approaches that we talk about can be really effective when your symptoms are in that mild to moderate place. But when your symptoms are severe, when you're in that freeze state, that approach isn't going to work. And I'm going to share an example with you that is something that's a little bit disturbing to think about, but it really drives home why different strategies are needed when your symptoms are severe. So imagine you have someone who has been set on fire, and then in that moment, you ask them to start doing a brain retraining activity or some sort of somatic tracking where they notice the symptoms that they're experiencing, but they do it with neutrality and they aren't worried, they aren't scared. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic that when your symptoms are so severe that you're going to be able to do those sorts of practices. Something else you don't want to try and do in these moments is to try and push through in this state. This isn't the time to resume normal activity. Although it won't cause any structural damage to your body, it's not actually going to harm you. But if you push through severe symptoms in a freeze state, trying to resume normal activity, you can get worse. It can reinforce existing pathways around fear and danger, keeping you stuck for even longer. So facing fear has to be a corrective experience, and you can't face fears in a panicked state and expect it to go away. The reason why brain retraining strategies are effective when your symptoms are mild or moderate is because your brain is more neuroplastic, meaning it makes changes better and easier when you're in a calm state. So it's not a good use of your time to try and rewire things with so many alarms going off in your body. So now you know what's going on and you know what you shouldn't do in a freeze state. So what should you do? It's all about understanding the 3 phases of a freeze state and then learning how to navigate them, and then eventually learning how to avoid those phases altogether. So the first phase that people typically go through when they are in a freeze state is panic. So those significant symptom flares, crashes, whatever you want to call them, when you're in this freeze state, often start out with an intense wave of fear. You feel overwhelmed and you feel scared. And it's like your brain has hit the panic button and it's just screaming at you like something's wrong, even when there's no new injury or issue that you can see. And this can happen when your brain interprets something as a threat, even if there's no actual danger. Miscommunications do happen. And this could be something in your environment or a strong emotion that is setting off alarms, or just like a faulty alarm going off repeatedly in a building. Your brain sends out pain signals sometimes in the absence of any harm or threat. Or sometimes we even just get stuck in a high alert state, and chronic fear keeps your nervous system in a constant state of danger mode. There are things going all the way back to childhood that can wire your brain to be in this high alert state. People who came from any sort of unstable or unsafe environment when they were growing up are more likely to see the world through a lens of fear. Or maybe you just went to a really competitive school or had very demanding parents, or maybe you were bullied in school. There's all sorts of things that can have your nervous system in a sort of hyperactive state. Sometimes the threats are real, sometimes they are not. There is a constant conversation going on between your brain and your body. And like with any conversation, there can be misunderstandings. All right, so let's look at how to navigate this phase. Because panic is a normal, understandable reaction to severe symptoms, initially, until you have the knowledge and the skills to do otherwise, you understandably won't do anything to navigate this phase all that well. You will probably just ride it out and eventually move into phase 2. So let's right now show you a way to interrupt that pattern. When you first feel the panic, the goal is to find ways to alleviate that panic. And a really simple way that you can do that is just with a gentle breathing exercise. So you breathe in for a count of 4, and then exhale for a count of 6. The act of having your exhale be longer than your inhale slows down your heart rate. Because when we're inhaling, our heart rate actually goes up a little bit, but when we exhale, it slows down. And all of this signals to our brain and our nervous system that we are not scared and that everything is okay. When I was a scuba diving instructor, they taught us in our training to become an instructor. It was right in the textbooks that it's impossible to panic when you're breathing slowly. So when I would take students down and new divers down, and I could see that they were panicking, I'd just get right in front of them. And I'd put one hand just gently on their diving vest, just so we can just stay nice and close. And I'd tell them to look at me, and then we'd breathe together by moving my hand. And this would calm them right down after we did a couple rounds of this. And without fail, every single time after, I'd be like, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "I'm okay." And then we keep going. So in this first phase of freeze, it's going to be small, simple actions that are going to be very powerful and move you through it. Just remind yourself that this is just a temporary phase, and education is key. The more you understand about these phases, the more you can navigate them like a pro, significantly reducing the panic phase and eventually eliminating it altogether. In this phase, self-compassion is also so important. So be kind to yourself. Symptom flares are a normal part of the recovery journey, and it's understandable if you feel panic set in. So work to replace like self-criticism with self-compassion. It's going to take some time for you to be able to navigate this phase without letting that panic set in, and that's okay. Ultimately, your goal is going to be to respond to symptoms without fear, but if it takes you a while to get there, that is okay. All right, next, phase 2 of freeze is race. So after that panic sets in, and before you have the skills to do otherwise, you will likely enter into this headspace of panicking and pulling out every tool you've ever learned, trying to get yourself out of this. Like, I'm going to do somatic tracking 100 times a day and brain retraining and this and that, and just do everything you can to try and fix what's going on. And all of this is coming from a place of urgency and pressure and fear that, you guessed it, can further amplify your symptoms. So this phase is the frantic effort to get rid of your symptoms, trying every technique, every exercise, pulling out every strategy you've ever learned, and then trying to do them all at once. But this urgency and pressure only reinforces those fear circuits in your brain, solidifying symptoms. This happens because in a state of panic, your natural response is to try and get rid of your symptoms. But pushing through pain with fearful, frantic attempts to get rid of it sends a message to your brain that there's ongoing danger, keeping that fear pain cycle active. You also, in this phase, might start avoiding activities to prevent further symptoms, which further entrenches the fear response. Okay, so let's look at how to navigate this one. And this is really simple. When you notice that you've gotten into the race phase, catch it. Say to yourself just a really gentle stop. Remind yourself that this is a normal part of the recovery process, that you are okay, that your body is fine, and that although there will be a time coming when you can use all of these great recovery strategies, now is not the time. Now you just sit back and just trust that everything's going to be okay. It's important to remember that becoming obsessed or putting undue pressure on yourself to change instantly can keep you stuck in that high alert state. It can feel counterintuitive, but in this phase, you need to stop trying to fix things. And the final phase of a freeze state is relax. So this is when you've gotten over the panic, you've stopped frantically trying to fix yourself, and you just relax into it. You accept that it's here, and you trust the process. By doing this, you help your brain understand that there is no danger so that it can shut off the freeze response. So how you navigate this phase is that you deprive your symptoms of their fuel source, which is fear. During this phase, moving from fear to trust helps deactivate the overactive threat assessment systems and turn off that freeze response. Consistently telling yourself that you're safe helps retrain your brain to stop sending out these danger signals. And calmly observing your state without fear creates new neural pathways, new pathways in the brain that weaken our old fear-based ones and become the new go-to of everything is safe, I am okay, no symptoms needed. So I know it can be a big ask, but focus on being at peace with your state without trying to change it. This mindset shift helps break that feign fear cycle. So in the relax phase, just fully embrace the calm and allow yourself to rest and recover without feeling guilty or feeling like you need to do anything to make it pass quicker. You have no expectations of yourself in this time. You do whatever you need to get through it until they pass. You're not worried about having a perfect diet. You're not worried about, binge watching TV. You're not worried that your whole self-care routine has gone out the window. That is okay. You just feel calm, feel at peace with things. And when you do this, it sends messages to your nervous system that indicate that you're safe, that your body is okay, that you trust the process, and you know this will pass. And this is something that's known as outcome independence. So you're not trying to actively change the outcome. You are at peace with the process and you are going with the flow. And what you are learning here, what you are rewiring in your brain, shifting to a place of your default being that you don't need to fix everything immediately, is going to transfer to virtually everything else in your life. Because trying to fix your finances, your relationship, your job, your diet, your exercise, your house, your kids, whatever it is, all at once is exhausting and not realistic. And it can be a really amazing thing to just accept that things are here and give them space, as imperfect as they are. It's okay to have long-term goals. It's okay to work on things, but there needs to be a balance. And you save so much energy when you shift your way of approaching things from trying to fix everything all of the time to just generally being at peace with the imperfection that's going on around you. I know this is a new way of thinking, but research shows that for the most part, most chronic symptoms are caused by the brain in the absence of any pathologies or structural damage in the body. If you're still unsure if your symptoms are caused by your brain and nervous system, you can check out this video that walks you through a checklist that helps you see what's really going on. Thank you for watching. And remember, you are not alone in this, not by a long shot. And you have totally got this. I hope to see you in this next video where I walk you through the most common science-backed signs that your symptoms might be caused by your nervous system.